Aloha scooter heads, and welcome back to another exciting episode of your electric scooter podcast. Back by popular demand, Beidu. He is an architect, an engineer. He's responsible for bringing electricity to huge portions of planet Earth. He's lived all over the world. And he's never ridden an electric scooter, so why am I interviewing him? Well, he lives in a DIY van where he travels the United States and skis. He does that full time. He's also a mountain biker. In a previous episode, I incorrectly said BMX, but I found out that the differences between BMX and mountain bikes are the size of the wheels and the kind of things that you do on those bikes. So I got schooled a little bit, live and learn. He is a mountain biker and downhill skier. Is that a thing? Do you really have to say the downhill part? Who skis uphill? Maybe people do. I know there's cross-country skiing, but I don't know if there's such a thing as uphill skiing. But Beidu is a downhill skier, to my knowledge. You get on a lift and you go to the top or a part of the mountain where you ski the rest of the way. I don't know how he does it living in a van. Well, I do know. He's got a diesel heater in there. He, being an engineer, has outfitted everything to be optimal, to be in a van in ice cold weather in the snow. So he can get up in the morning and head to the slopes and do some pretty intense stuff. Maybe more intense than what most of us do on scooters, I would say. The degree of danger, I don't know, weaving in and out of traffic or weaving down a mountain and flying off moguls and stuff. I'm not sure. I'm not a skier, so I don't know how it compares. Some of the things we're going to talk about in this episode, which is a little weird because I'm going to start right off the bat with fire, rapid fire, where I just ask some questions. Because as you know, this podcast is about the scooter lifestyle. If you want to know specs and facts and speeds and comparisons and stuff, I do a little of that, but not much. Go to the Electric Scooter Guide. Go see Timothy West or Ginger on Wheels, Alien Rides, Jimmy Chang. Those guys have great YouTube channels where they do very interesting reviews on specific types of scooters. I will talk about them every once in a while as it pertains, but this episode particularly emphasizes lifestyle, having fun. And you know, my earlier episodes, I had kind of a stricter outline of what I was going to do with the episode, but I found myself sometimes I would ask a question and the person would give a great answer that would lead to a interesting rabbit hole that I didn't pursue. And I listened to my own podcast and I corrected that because I found out that's wrong. If the conversation takes a specific turn, it's probably because the person I'm interviewing is interested in that topic, which means it's going to make for a better interview. So in this interview, much like others, I got to admit, I really try to pursue those rabbit holes. So if we talk about motorcycles, if we talk about mountain bikes, we talk about DIY vans, it's all from the perspective of electric scooting, but that's where the conversation takes us because my overarching objective of this podcast is what? To be interesting, right? Do you want to hear measurements on how long handlebars are and how much range you can squeeze out of how many volts and all? Maybe, you know, I do try to pepper the podcast a little bit with some technical knowledge. But I'm not a very technical person, so I'm not going to really go super deep. Some of the things we're going to talk about in this episode, after the rapid fire, we're going to mention Kazakhstan again. When you hear the word Almaty, or we're talking about the city of Almaty, that is the largest city in Kazakhstan. It's not the capital, and Beidu spent some time there recently. We'll also mention Israel, AC/DC, both the electricity and the band. Egypt, a little pro tip on how to take care of your ears. It's going to be an interesting podcast. So, fire. Rapid fire.
Fire! We play with fire! Rapid fire! Rapid fire, fire, fire right now!
On the Electric Scooter Podcast, we sometimes like to play a little game called Rapid Fire, where I ask a question and you just answer right off the top of your head. It may or may not have something to do with scooting. What band have you been listening to lately?
It was a rock and roll band.
Well, that narrows it down. It wasn't polka or Venezuelan yodeling or...
Well, one I like to ski to, or I was skiing to, is Volbeat.
Volbeat.
Yeah.
Volbeat?
Yeah, I think it's a Danish or a Finnish band.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of edgy. It has some... It's new, but it has old school rock, heavy rock vibes to it.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. Volbeat. When you were in Kazakhstan, what was your go-to local food?
Well, the times I've eaten the most out was every lunch. The first couple places I went were very, very close to my office, and we would all go over there. In Kazakhstan, every restaurant has what they call business lunches, and they're all in competition with each other. So for about $5, sometimes $4.50, maybe sometimes even $3.75, you can get a 4-course meal. So you get...
Who wants to do that at lunch, though? You can go back to work and take a nap?
No, they're moderate portions. It's not America. Only in America do you see these mountain portions for every meal. Then your parents tell you, well, eat everything on your plate. And as you age, we're creatures of habits.
You get fat.
Eat the same amount of food. Well, you see where that's going. Anyway, in Kazakhstan, they have portions that American first looks at, and you go, wow, that's kind of skimpy. But when you're done with the dessert, it's like, wow, that was just enough.
So when you say 4-course meal, are all 4 courses on one plate, or they bring one thing at a time? So it really is a 4-course meal.
Yeah, they bring your salads, they bring your soups, they bring your main dish, and then you bring your dessert. And then you get a drink with that, too.
Because Ecuador, they have something called almuerzo, which... people that speak Spanish kind of know, I guess, that means lunchtime or snack or something like that. I'm not sure there's different ways to say snack, merienda, I don't know. But almuerzos run about $3, and they give you a salad, a starch, almost always rice, and a meat, and a soup, and a juice drink.
Nice.
But I don't know if I'd call that a 4-course meal, because they're going to set it down in front of you and then bring the juice and then bring the soup. So what you're talking about is kind of a European style.
Getting back to scooters, it'd be very interesting to find out where the highest concentration of scooter sales are in the world.
Ooh.
So I imagine they would be in the cities, but now you have cities, all the cities I think would work with scooters. So which city per capita has the highest rate of scooters?
That's interesting. I know Israel is huge with scooters.
I knew they would be because they didn't have them when I was there. But when we talk, not electric scooters, but regular Vespa scooters.
Oh, right.
So when I was over there...
Now it's electric scooters.
Right. When I was there, everybody had a Vespa and or a Vespa type, 2-stroke, maybe 100cc or something like that. And they're allowed to ride anywhere on the road. They can go between cars, but they generally stay on the shoulders because they're so wide. The other big thing is because they allow them to park anywhere, including the really wide sidewalks. So all the scooters, you can go right up to the building you work in or a store, park your scooter right on the sidewalk with another 100 scooters that are there. Mm-hmm. Now, I can see where electric scooters would take place of the normal ones because, first of all, in a cost perspective, gas is very expensive in Israel. Mm-hmm. There's no gas. Electricity, I can't remember because my employer was paying for my electricity. Yeah, but I could see that place because they have excellent asphalt, very, very smooth. And so they take good care of their roads. Mm-hmm. They have the budget to do it, at least in, I was in Tel Aviv, but all the way up to Herzliya and then up north, you get into cities like Haifa. They all have very, very good asphalt there. Mm-hmm.
And if I were judging by the demographics of the electric scooter podcast, which that's not an accurate barometer at all, I get rankings for what country the podcast rates at what level by country. It doesn't say, like, for example, worldwide, I got a notification that I was in the top 5% of podcasts worldwide. I assume that's in the hobbies and leisure category. But Netherlands, Greece, and Australia. Of course, we do have Canada, North America, Canada and the United States. But I kind of expected that. But Greece, the Netherlands, and Australia. Have you been to any of those three places?
Yes. In fact, I went to an AC/DC concert in Greece, in Athens, at the Olympic Stadium.
We're on the highway to hell. Might as well ended up the way we started. So AC/DC was in Athens?
Yeah.
And how long ago? I mean, when was the most recent time you were in Greece?
That was that AC/DC concert.
Oh, okay.
And that's when I was working. That's when I was living in Israel.
Oh.
And I used to live in Egypt. And my co-guitar player in the band we were in called me up or sent me an email. And he goes, "Hey, Beidu, AC/DC's playing in Athens in 2 weeks. Do you want to go?" Of course, my response was absolutely. And so he says, "Okay." And he hung up, calls me back about 10 minutes later, says, "I just bought 11 tickets." So he had a group of 10 coming from Cairo, and then I was going to fly in from Tel Aviv. But that was a great concert. It was loud. We were down in the pits in the front, but it was so loud. I've done what I always do, whether I'm riding my Harley, I'm working in the garage with the power equipment, or other loud things at being loud concerts. I used to stick spit wads in my ears.
Oh. Where do you get spit wads?
Spit wads, now come on.
Just anything that's paper that's
near
you.
Yeah, you just rip off a piece of, a napkin, a paper towel, or anything. You get it moist, not dripping wet, and just stick them in your ears. And so I've been doing that ever since I was 17.
Wow.
When I heard loud music. It was just very uncomfortable for me, and rather than sticking my fingers in my ears, I would just stick spit wads, and I still do it to this day.
How many years were you there? Like 6 years or something? 6, 8 years?
15.
15 years in Egypt.
Yeah.
And at the time you left, probably people weren't riding electric scooters.
No,
either,
this is before then. This is back when they had those razors.
Yeah.
And
which are electric scooters.
Well, without the
kind of for. Well, they have Razor's also a company that makes.
Okay, well, this is before they had motors.
Oh, okay, they're just kick scooters.
They're a little kick scooter, not a razor, a kick scooter.
They do X Games with those things.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, there's crazy. You can see YouTube videos, just like they do the skateboards, up and down ramps and doing spins and all that kind of stuff.
My daughters had. I bought them a couple of those, and they'd take them to school sometimes. Sometimes they wouldn't. But I know one evening we had a dart league. We were playing darts in the house, and we ran out of something, and I had to go down to the store and get it. And it was a long walk. It would have been maybe 15 minutes walking. It was too close to drive. I didn't drive 2 blocks, and so I looked at my daughter's scooter, kick scooter, and I said, "Well, I'll try this." And so that's the first time and the last time I've ever been on one. But the first thing.
So you've never been on any type, not an electric scooter ever in your life?
This is back in. Oh man, this is.
But even up to now, you still haven't.
No, I haven't been on an electric scooter.
Wow.
Ever.
Now that you've seen the different classes of electric scooter, my small one, my medium range ones, and my big ones, if it were you, coming from the perspective of a skier, I don't know if that matters, but what type of scooter do you think you would go for?
The first thing to answer that question would be what it would be my use of it.
Yeah, and use case scenario.
The use for me that I would see would be extremely practical is if I lived in the city and I had to run short errands. There's no doubt I would have one of those things and take that to go wherever I was going, especially with the parking problems.
This is Paul Somerville with Electric Scooter Guide, and you're listening to my favorite podcast, the Electric Scooter Podcast with Dagwood Streets.
Damn, you're so good, man.
Whoa, somebody abruptly changed the radio station there. Paul Somerville of the Electric Scooter Guide says that the Electric Scooter Podcast is his favorite podcast. Wow, that's that's high praise. I'll take that one coming from Paul. If you recall an earlier podcast, Beidu was with us and brought his ukulele. Well, this time he brought his guitar. So what you're hearing there in the background is us sitting around and playing. And just like with the ukulele, I'm kind of coming up with the trashy riffs. And Beidu, whoa. Like Ginger on Wheels, like Dagwood Streets, Beidu has a DIY van. He has a house, but he also lives out of the DIY van when he is on long trips to go skiing. For example, he lives in Arkansas, but he likes to ski up in Colorado. So he stays in his van, and this thing is tricked out. We could go into that too, you know. It's a 1995 Ford 250.
It's based off of a 1993 Ford E250 camper that was made by a company called Jayco.
Oh, very famous company. They make RVs.
Yeah, and it was the typical conversion van from the outside with the two big windows behind the driver and then one big window behind the passenger, behind the double side doors. And the first thing I did with that van is I said, well, that's not going to work with the floor plan I want, because I want walls there.
You're talking about the big wide windows on the side of the van that, like, if you had row seats, the people would like to look out the window.
Exactly.
Yeah, not what you were planning to do.
No, I had to have it flat to start working, and then I would figure out where to put some vent windows, one for sleeping on one side and one right where the sink is when I cook. And so
you had to take it down to the shell, basically. You had to take it down to the shell. You got rid of everything inside.
Well, inside,
right? Except for the cabinets, maybe.
Inside I stripped it bare because it didn't have any insulation, and so I was going to super insulate it since I was going to ski in Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Canada, Washington, and Oregon. That's where I've taken it on the ski adventures.
Wow!
But anyway,
and you're sleeping in the van.
Yeah, it has a 300 watts of solar on top with a Max Air fan, which is better than the other brand, because this one, it can be raining and no water will come in it, whether it's open or closed. Anyway, it had these big side windows, and the first thing I did was go to a junkyard and find a donor van from another Ford. And the good thing about Ford Econoline vans is they didn't change that body design for a long, long time.
So you can get parts.
I could get a side panel off of a 98.
Everything will still fit.
It didn't matter what year. So I cut the sheet metal out off the side panels, and then they were bigger than the window openings, and so I cut them. And then,
would you just use like a pair of scissors or something?
Oh no! I'll get to that. You have to
like a grinder kind of thing.
At the junkyard, there's 2 or 3 ways to do it. One is you can get a angle grinder with a cutting wheel. You can get a Sawzall with a carbide, which is what I use. That goes through everything.
Wow.
After working with those power tools and seeing how they cut and what they can cut, I had carbide blades where I was cutting solid concrete and basalt, really tough stuff.
So going back to the DIY van. So here's what I was going to propose to you. And I still want to hear more about it because to me it's fascinating. As a DIY van owner, you've seen mine. I just screwed wood together. And I mean, just wood I bought at Home Depot. And it's, it works though. The bed we can sleep on and it's comfortable. We do have electricity. We have this kind of things, but it's nothing to the extent that yours is. So my proposal was going to be this. Okay, Scooterheads, if you can imagine, if you look at the rear of Beidu's van, which by the way, it's painted this like army green and it's got this heavy duty, in the Navy we called it non-skid, like they put on ships. In Hawaii,
bedliner.
In Hawaii we call it lava liner.
A truck bedliner. It's a camo green truck bedliner.
So his van is painted camouflage green. I think it looks like an olive. It looks like an army kind of green.
Yeah, army surplus. In fact, I was driving it through Montana or Idaho, and some guy at a truck stop, we were both filling up the tanks. He was going, "Wow, that's army surplus. Where'd you get that? That's cool. I want one."
Oh, you thought the van was army surplus because of the color? Yeah. Wow. So to the rear of the olive drab bedliner coated 1993 Ford van, he has this big piece of what's that diamond pattern metal box that sticks straight to the sky, kind of like a big middle finger looking. What I'm saying, it doesn't look like a cargo box like you're thinking, like you put your extra stuff in. This one, it's like it was long and cylindrical if it laid on his side pointing to the sky, and that's what he uses to keep his skis in. Right. So what my proposal is that you get a small light scooter that you can fit in there or somewhere else, and when you're staying in your van, you want to hop over to In-N-Out. No, they probably don't have In-N-Outs. You want to hop over to Der Wiener Schnitzel and get yourself something to eat and then head back to the van because you don't feel like cooking. You just pop out that scooter, unfold it, click, boom.
I thought of that, but then I also thought about where am I going to charge it? How do I charge it in the van?
You just plug it in like you do anywhere else.
USB?
Plug it in.
Plug it into what?
Oh, you don't have a 110 plug anywhere in your van?
Yeah,
Not a single 110?
Well, I can take it from shore power, but I have to be at some place where I can plug it in to the wall.
Oh, see, I have an inverter in mine. It goes from the converter to the inverter, and my inverter has 110 on it.
Yeah, but that's coming off of your 12-volt battery.
Yes, it is a waste of power. I understand that, but it works for me. Now, I haven't used that to charge my scooter, but I do have a thing called a Jackery, which is a lithium-ion portable battery. But I only charge my scooter when I'm plugged into shore power. Or, you go to somebody's house or you go somewhere, there are places you can plug in. But you don't have to do it every night. If you're just going to get food or going to the grocery store, living in your van, you might have to charge it once a week.
Yeah. Well, I thought of that also for e-bike. Mountain bike, electric mountain bike.
But that's going to take up way more space, though, too, than a scooter.
Well, space isn't an issue in the big van I have, but it's the size of the batteries, and unless I carry a generator, I don't know if I can do that.
That's another way, yeah. You could use a generator.
You have to carry a generator. And one of those little Hondas would probably work, the Honda 2000.
Oh, and EU 2000, that would handle it.
Little tiny ones would do it. So, yeah, there's solutions for that.
There are. I would like to see when Joe Biden is doing his infrastructure plan. This is big picture, okay? Not going to happen. But imagine sidewalks that bypass intersections, just like bridges. They just kind of go over where people are walking across the street. And along these paths are huge solar panels with a 110 at the bottom where scooter riders or e-bike riders, micro-mobility enthusiasts, if you will, can plug in if they need to. you don't have to worry about people taking advantage of it, because I don't think you're going to park your butt there for 3 hours and hog it up. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that would be an issue, but I just kind of doubt it, because nobody would want to do that. But you just plug in, get that little bit of juice you need to make it the rest of the way home.
And that's actually what they have in Almaty. In Almaty, they have either tunnels, which scooters can go on, or sometimes they have pedestrian bridges going over. But most people don't like climbing the stairs. The tunnels have nice, easy ramps, and it goes actually down to the train station they have underground there. So they have those under the major thoroughfares, so there's no walkways anymore needed, and so the traffic moves a lot smoother.
Yeah, I wouldn't mandate that it has to go over. I mean, it could go under, around. Each city or urban area is going to have their own layout and going to want to do whatever works best for them. I'm all for that. The big point is I would like to see people on PEVs be able to get from one part of the city in a lot quicker time than people in cars, without any kind of hassle, and making it convenient for them too.
That makes it an interesting comparison. There's a comparison between scooters and cars. But for me, I see it more as a comparison between pedestrians and scooters, because now you're doing everything a pedestrian is doing, you're going everywhere he's going, but a lot faster and with a lot less effort.
But just like bike trails and just like other things that you might see, I believe that even in an urban environment, that are places scooters and e-bikes are going to go, that pedestrians are unlikely to. Like
on the road.
In Hawaii, there's a bike path that skips all the traffic lights and everything, but I rarely saw anybody. And there's a lot of like middle of nowhere. You wouldn't be comfortable, and it's too far. You'd either take a bus or some other. Yeah, you would take some other way rather than walk the way that for a scooter or e-bike it totally makes sense to do.
It depends where you are. I think it's a location situation that you look at and say, okay, this makes sense to have one now. Other places, maybe not. Yeah,
exactly. That's what I'd like to see. That's pie in the sky. It would be awesome, but it is achievable, and I think we should do it. Like you said, in Almaty, they have those bridges, pedestrian bridges, just like they have in Thailand. Instead of making them steps, you make some kind of smooth transition. When I lived in Bangkok, when I would drive to work, you could take a taxi or drive a car, and how far was it? Just maybe a couple miles, but it would take you. By car, it would take you 45 minutes. So that includes taxi, bus. You wouldn't even want to do that. But I could make it in 15 minutes on my motorcycle. I could really cut the time from. I could cut a half an hour off of my commute simply by using a motorcycle. But over there, rules are pretty lax. We'd go up on sidewalks. Of course, you'd lane split. Every time there's a red light, you go all the way to the front automatically. Everybody does.
I was talking to Beidu there, and that was him playing lead. And I'm struggling there to play a little bit of rhythm guitar. Unfortunately, this episode ends on a sad note. When Beidu stopped by in his DIY van, he brought his ukulele guitar. We had a good time. Played some ukulele, played some guitar. Got to do the interview live here at the Scooter Dome. We were next to a refrigerator, so you could hear kind of a hum. I don't know if you could hear it or not. I did everything I could to reduce it, so I know not to do that next time. So, architect, mountain bike enthusiast, welder, tailor, DIY van builder, engineer, skier, Beidu, unfortunately, had an accident downhill skiing after he left the Scooter Dome. It was bad enough that he was in the ICU and he's getting out today. So please keep him in your thoughts. And remember what my favorite singer, Stephen Morrissey, said, hold on to your friends. Aloha.